All right. I'll call the November 15th, the 2022 Pleasant Ridge City Commission meeting to order. May we have the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Can we have roll call?
Commissioner Budnick?
Here.
Commissioner Lenko?
Here.
Mayor?
Here.
Mayor Scott?
Here.
We have Commissioner Perry, who's attending via Zoom. She'll be a non-voting member for tonight's meeting.
Great. All right, well, welcome everyone. Full house. We're going to start with a very exciting topic, the annual audit.
Smile.
Yes, please.
All right, cool. My name is Dane Porter. I'm a senior manager with Maynard Casterison, and we did you guys' audit for the fiscal year and wanted to come down and present the results of the audit to you. So, want to thank the city staff and plant for their assistance with the audit this year. Everything went smooth as it has in the past. So, independent auditor's report on pages 1 through 3 of the financial statements. This is our opinion on your financial statements. We conducted our audit in accordance with generally accepted auditing principles. Just want to remind you guys real quick that the overall objective of the audit is for us to express our opinions on your financial statements. It is not necessarily designed or intended to detect fraud. However, if we were made aware of anything during the year that we were concerned with during the audit, we would definitely bring that to your attention. But that was not the case. Everything went smooth. I put a few of the highlights, paragraphs from the auditor's report on the next few slides here. All right, so the first section of the independent auditor's report provides the opinion on the financial statements. We've expressed a unmodified opinion. It's a good, clean opinion. It's the highest level of assurance that we can give on the financial statements. So we don't audit every single number, so we can't say that everything was perfect, but we can say that your financial statements are presented fairly in all material respects in accordance with GAAP. So that's what the city wants to see. The next section of the independent auditor's report lays out management's responsibility for the financial statements. So we've taken the information, we've audited it, we put it together as in the financial statements, but it's still management's responsibility for the presentation and the fair presentation, which also includes the design, implementation, and the maintenance of controls to ensure that fair presentation and preparation. So management, the city commission, is responsible for the design, implementation, and maintenance of controls for the financial statements. The fourth section of that report lays out our responsibility as the auditors, which our responsibility is to obtain reasonable assurance about whether the financial statements are presented fairly and free from material misstatement, whether due to fraud or error. Again, that's going to be our opinion based on our audit, which is a unmodified opinion, clean opinion. Want to go over the governmental funds financial statements, pages 12 and 14. We'll focus on the general fund, being the operating fund for the city. The special revenue funds are designated for certain purposes, so the general fund is where the city's operations are going to be at. First, we'll look at the balance sheet, which is a snapshot of your financial condition as of close of business on June 30, 2022. This is on page 12 of the financial statements. Total fund balance at the end of the year was $1,793,328. You have fund balance reported in two categories of fund balance. There's the non-spendable, which would be inventory and prepaids, and you also have fund balance reported in unassigned. The unassigned and the assigned categories, if you had anything in the assigned fund balance, is what we would consider to be your unrestricted fund balance. We like to look at the unrestricted fund balance being the amounts available for spending next year versus your annual expenditures and other financing uses. So looking at the unrestricted fund balance being 1,748,558 over your annual expenditures of 3,100,558, and your other financing sources being the transfers out of 400,000. You're at about 50% of your annual expenditures and other financing uses in unrestricted fund balance. So approximately half a year, good solid financial condition. Looking at the statement of revenues, expenditures, changes in fund balance on page 14 of the financial statements. Your general fund revenues, total revenues, 3,569,442, about a 6% increase from the year before. Total expenditures, 3,100,558, about a 9% increase from the year before. Other financing sources at $400,000, increase from about $50,000 last year. And the bottom line here for the year is you had a net change in fund balance. You increased your fund balance by $68,884. This graph here just lays out the 5-year trend of your total revenues, total expenditures, and your total fund balance for the general fund. As you can see here, the past 5 years, you've added to your fund balance in each of the past 5 years, so your revenues have exceeded your expenditures. Good, solid trend. Next graph here looks at the composition of your general fund revenues. Approximately 69% of your general fund revenue comes from property taxes. About 4% comes from licenses and permits. Intergovernmental being state shared revenues, about 10%. So kind of show you how important that tax base is. Overall, consistent with the year before. Next slide here, expenditures, composition of your general fund expenditures. 46% of your annual expenses are spent on public safety. And general government being 21%. So again, pretty consistent with the year before. A little bit of a decrease in each of the categories as it relates to last year due to the increase in transfers out this year. This graph here is a 5-year presentation of the unassigned fund balance as it relates to your annual expenditures and other financing uses. Upward trend from 2018 to 2021. A little bit of a dip in 2022. I believe that's mostly related to the increase in the total expenditures because of the transfers out of the general fund. So overall, a good healthy trend. This graph here is the same thing, but looking at it more in terms of dollars versus percentages of your annual expenditures. The bottom line there, the orange line representing the 17% of your annual expenditures that the GFOA likes to recommend as a minimum fund balance. The blue line representing your actual unrestricted fund balance. That's all I plan to go over. If you have any questions, I'd be more than happy to try to answer them.
Any questions? No. Thank you very much. It's always good to see that things are at least moving in a good direction.
Yes, yeah,
Thank you.
thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
May we have a motion?
Your Honor, I move the audit of the city's financial statements for the fiscal year ended June 30th, 2022 be received and filed.
Second?
May I have a roll call?
Commissioner Abundant?
Yes.
Commissioner Lenko?
Yes.
Commissioner Strayer?
Yes.
Mayor Scott?
Yes. The motion carries. All right, I think we'll move on to Woodward Heights.
All right. Gonna take a guess that.
A few folks might be interested.
It was for
Dave,
the audit.
do you have the clicker for the? Okay, in the packet is the tool design final report for, and recommendation for the Woodward Heights traffic management study. The bottom line is that Tool recommended that the city advance the traffic calming with no operational changes to concept design. They also advised that the city could consider converting Woodward Heights to a one-way eastbound traffic direction from Woodward to Bermuda as an additional consideration. The traffic calming option includes horizontal and vertical deflection, so speed humps or tables, and then median islands and chicanes. There are a number of things you could do along Woodward Heights, but it's a challenging street given the number of driveways. That limits some of the traffic calming options. But these are your vertical deflections, speed humps, and speed tables. And those concept spacing for those is shown in the bottom. You need to really have one of these every 300 to 500 feet for them to be effective. Otherwise, cars will just speed up after them and resume their past speed. Also, having a number of them in series would be a discouragement to truck traffic to continue down the road. Trucks could potentially stomach getting over one of these, but having to go over 5 of them to continue down the street would be more difficult for them. And just to highlight, the truck route, the posted truck route goes south here at Gainsborough. So this is where the sign in Ferndale, it says all trucks continue south, or truck route. And then I think there's 5 no truck signs right here that are working very well currently. The other part is the horizontal deflection. This is where you cause drivers to have to move within the roadway as they go down the street. So those could be median islands or bump outs. The top is an example from Mitchell Street outside of Petoskey. The bottom is a potential implementation of a chicane where parking moves from one side of the street to the other to create a natural. You still maintain 2 travel lanes, but it causes the street to move a little as you're driving, so you have to slow down and pay attention. Other things are possibilities are the median islands and bump outs. This is a something that would require these things to be placed along the entire length of the street to be effective and to create a consistent and calm traffic. Again, any one of these has an area of influence at which a driver will slow down and pay attention. And then once they're past it, they just resume their previous behavior. So you have to have a number of these as well as a number of the speed humps to create a consistent level of desired speed down the street. So it can be costly to do these things in concrete and putting in trees and moving curbs. So a potential is an interim implementation where you use paint and bollards to create the same effect for an interim period of time. We'd likely have to pursue grants to help fund the final implementation, but you can get almost all of the impact. It just doesn't look as nice with these for the interim period. We would have to figure out a way to put in the vertical deflections immediately. So it could be, concrete raised intersection or speed table would be the eventual, but it might be an asphalt speed hump for the time being. The other item that was under consideration was the one-way travel on Woodward Heights eastbound. So at Bermuda, at the city border, you can see the blue line here is the city border. This is Ferndale. You would not be able to continue westbound on Woodward Heights. There'd be a barrier or something that blocked that lane. There's a drawback to this, of course, is that traffic that wants to get to Woodward, that wants to go west, is going to go somewhere. And it's likely that the path of least resistance would be to go up Gainsborough and then go down Sylvan. The alternate route would be to go south into Ferndale onto Oak Ridge, or maybe one of the streets south, because I think they're putting in speed humps on Oak Ridge, or maybe already have. So we're looking at displacing the issue rather than making it disappear. So this definitely has some spillover impact. One of the potential options that Toole talked about would be restricting Gainsborough northbound at Woodward Heights, turning Gainsborough into a one-way southbound so that you couldn't go north. And there's a couple practical challenges with this. One of them being that, and we witnessed this when Woodward Heights was under construction, when we had, I think, 4 street closed ahead, no through traffic, blocking the eastbound lane when Woodward Heights was under construction and they only had half the street open. And it didn't matter. Cars just drove around them and kept going because that doesn't apply to me. And then they got down to Bermuda where it actually was closed, and we're turning around on people's lawns, and it was a mess. So if you just do a barricade and close that street at the border and there's nothing behind it, cars will just drive around it and continue on the way they have been. So it's not just putting in, under these options, putting in a barricade here. You would have to eliminate that entire lane somehow with bollards, with making it non-drivable. And you'd have to do the same thing going northbound on Gainsborough so that, you know, cars couldn't do that. And then oncoming traffic would have to control. So it would be more than just putting in a closure at those intersections. The other practical challenge is that we have to go to Ferndale because Gainsborough and Woodward Heights is in the city of Ferndale. So Ferndale has to agree to close Gainsborough so that all of that traffic would then reroute to Ferndale streets. And it's hard to imagine the Ferndale City Council looking at their constituents and saying, yeah, this can be great. We're gonna give our streets all of this new traffic so that we can prevent, you know, this from continuing on through Pleasant Ridge. So I don't think that's a very likely prospect of being able to prevent cars from continuing north on Gainsborough to prevent the traffic from diverting. So we already know that Sylvan has more traffic than most Pleasant Ridge streets. There's really 3 levels of street in Pleasant Ridge. The first level is Ridge, Woodward Heights, and Oakland Park. Excuse me, Oakland Park. Those all have 3,000 cars a day or more. The second level are streets like Millington, Sylvan, Oxford. Those streets carry probably about 1,500 cars per day. And then every other street has maybe 800 cars or fewer. It's really 3 buckets of street. So Sylvan is already a level 2 street. And if you divert all that traffic from Woodward Heights to Sylvan, all you've done is switched, because Sylvan would have traffic volumes similar to what Woodward Heights has now. And, you know, I think a real consideration is that people have made their choices about where to buy a house based on the set of conditions that exists today.
So if it's changed, that's buy our house.
Now, Woodward Heights has always been it's a regional collector street. It's 30 feet wide, recognizing it's always had a different role in the regional transportation network. Now, of course, we're here doing this study and looking at improvements we can make to Woodward Heights to mitigate the increases we've seen in recent years. And I don't think that saying, Sylvan, you take it, is really a good answer.
I don't think anybody's asking Sylvan to take it. We're
If
talking
we,
share it.
if we could, we'll wait until everyone has an opportunity to speak.
So the other potential way of mitigating the issue would be to just close all the streets at the border, which would be a mid-block. The red line is the Ferndale Pleasant Ridge border. The issue here is we have a new house being built. To do the turnaround would essentially be their driveway would be part of that turnaround. Same thing on Fairwood. You can see the border. You note that there's driveways here and here and here and another one here. So putting in that turnaround means you're either telling this person who lives in Pleasant Ridge that if we have to shift it over, you can't go west. You have to go only this way, or their driveway is part of the turnaround. So there are some practical issues with closing all the streets at the border, plus emergency vehicle access, other things we'd have to think through. So I think those are the considerations. I think that the next steps would be to give staff direction on how the city commission would like to proceed. Tool's recommendation would be to advance the traffic calming option to concept design, or rather, not concept design, to design phase, to actually come up with the engineering plans for how you would implement all of those traffic calming and speed humps, how you would fit those on the street. We have a lot of driveways we have to work around, so we have to make sure that things work and that residents can still get in and out of their driveways, but that we can still make a difference in the traffic on the street.
Thank you. I think at this point, I'll just open it up to anyone that's here that would like to say something about the proposals that have been submitted by Tool. Please.
Were you pointing to him or to me?
You were first.
Okay. I would like
Please
to say-
get to the podium.
Oh, up to the podium.
Yeah. And please provide your name and your address.
Yeah, my name is Sandy Knudsen. I live at 49 Sylvan. I'm right where Bermuda dead ends at Sylvan. That's kind of we have 2 stop signs going east and west on Sylvan. One of them is a 4-way, one of them is a 3-way. So I think maybe that's why I notice in the summertime, when I'm outside, between 20 to 25% of people are rolling or just ignoring that stop sign, because they only have to look left. Right is my house. And I strongly, strongly feel that if we do anything that's going to divert traffic to Sylvan, we are simply going to change the problem from a Woodward Heights problem to a Sylvan problem. And then we're gonna be back here again, perhaps paying for another study and having to come up with some kind of remedial effort for Sylvan. So, I feel strongly for myself and other, friends and neighbors on my street that, anything that's gonna divert more to Sylvan, I don't see it as sharing. I see it as simply moving the problem to a different street. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name's Howard Smith. I live at 60 Woodward Heights. And to me, you know, I tend to agree with her a little bit. I don't think that making the street one way is going to totally solve the problem for the whole community. But I do expect something to be done to calm the traffic on our street. It's just nuts around there. This evening before I left, I could hear cars blowing their horns at one another, hear foul language all the time. I've been passed. There's a school bus number 2, Ferndale School District, that rips through there at 36 miles an hour. And I know this because I've followed it from the school down Oakland Park, across Sylvan. It did a right on Indiana, did a left on Woodward Heights. The first time it left me in the dust. The second time I kept up with the school bus and it was doing 36 miles an hour. We have all these buses that rip through our street that aren't dropping off or picking up kids. So why don't they take a different route, maybe 9 Mile? And you talk about, James was talking about how Ferndale wouldn't want to close Bermuda going north. Well, they put the burden on us to absorb traffic from 9 Mile when they called 9 Mile. So I really don't care if we have to close Bermuda northbound if they do a one-way on Woodward Heights. Doesn't bother me in the slightest. Let Ferndale eat it. Maybe they can uncalm 9 Mile a little bit, raise the speed limit to 35 instead of 25 and get cars moving, time the lights to where you can make them. You know, so you can make better time on 9 Mile on a subdivision street, Woodward Heights. We're in a subdivision. It's a subdivision. It has a name. It's not a mile road or a half-mile road. It's a subdivision. It's a neighborhood street. 9 Mile's a mile road where traffic needs to rip through it. So they can uncalm 9 Mile if they want to not have the cars on their immediate streets. If you do close northbound Bermuda. But the bottom line is I'll accept whatever you choose. Anything will help. I appreciate your time and listening to me. Thank you.
Thanks,
May I
Howard.
just-
Thank you, Howard.
May I just clarify, when we're talking about Gainsborough or Bermuda, we would need them to close it because it is their
Right,
street.
right,
Okay,
yeah.
so I just wanted to clarify that
No.
we couldn't just close it
I
and
know I'm
let them
aware
deal
of
with
that,
it.
and they're not going to close it because they don't want to eat the traffic. They don't care about us. Like, a lot of people here probably don't care about them.
Right,
But
no.
sad, but that's life,
No, I appreciate it. I just wanted to make sure we were.
Yes, please.
Can I, and actually, Howard, because you have experience with trucks, right?
Yes, I used to drive a truck.
Was city manager's point about 5 in a row, 5 speed humps in a row? Like, do you concur with that?
Yes,
Okay,
yes,
then.
because when
Yeah.
you feel those bumps in a
Yeah.
truck, it's not like a passenger car. You feel them. Those trucks have pneumatic seats, and if you go ripping through them, you hit your head on the roof.
Got it.
So yeah, you see signs on the road that says bump, and you don't feel anything. In a truck, you feel it.
Okay.
So yes, that will help. Those speed tables will help with the trucks. They won't want it. A Cisco truck, which goes over to by the school, the other side of John R. Cuts through our street almost 2-3 times a week. Just rips through there. Be nice to see him hit his head on the roof of his truck. So I'm all about speed tables.
Okay. And then just to synthesize that, really, then it's a calming mechanism, but it effectively reduces traffic too, in a sense.
It will
For
reduce the truck
trucks.
volume, yes, because from the experience of driving a truck and knowing what those bumps do, yes, it will. They'll have to come to a complete stop and go over it because it's the way the wheelbase and the size of the tires and everything are. You feel it.
Sure. That and the cargo.
Yeah.
Thank
yeah.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Was there anyone else?
Yes.
Thank you.
Sherry Sadler, Belton Sadler, 3 Woodward Heights. You guys have heard from me before. First, I want to start by saying that I am offended that the city manager who works for us would even begin with something like people that bought on Woodward Heights should have known what they were buying into. That is offensive. I am just as much a resident of this city as anybody else sitting right here.
I agree with
I pay the same tax dollars that everybody else does. So to use that as a reason for any decision to be made about what we do about traffic on our street is absurd and offensive.
May I?
So be
Sure,
heard, please.
Did you have more to say?
Yeah, I
or
do
did-
have more to
Just-
say.
Just on that point, I think my point is that it's not to be offensive. We are all residents of the city. The fact is that the market has priced in the impact of the street. A house that's on Woodward Heights is 15% less than a comparable house elsewhere in the city.
Are you seriously
I'm-
going to start talking about that?
I'm just-
And how
it's-
much people's homes are worth?
It's a market externality that's been priced.
We're,
in.
I still am a
I-
resident of Pleasant Ridge.
I understand,
sir.
and that's why we're
And
here.
That's, I'm
That's
using
why
that
we're
term
here looking
loosely.
at things to make the street better.
From Savannah, Georgia, so I didn't know Woodward Heights was crazy with traffic. I went
It
by
has
there.
increased tenfold over the 8 years that I've lived there. And I have been patient and listened and participated from the beginning of this. And I'm going to see it through to the end, whether I agree or disagree with what you say or do. But I will not agree, and I think he's very offensive, and that's it. I'm going to leave that point there. I'm a resident of Pleasant Ridge, just like anybody here that lives on Sylvan or any other street. So what I have to say is very important. And from the beginning of this project that you guys did, we were told as Woodward Heights residents that we were going to be heard and that we were going to be considered. I was on the Zoom call, couldn't get logged into their survey. And when we were voting on the survey on the different options that we wanted, I asked the question because they said they were hearing our questions. How many of the people that are voting for these options that they like better are Woodward Heights residents, and how many are none other street residents? I get it. Nobody wants traffic increased. I get that. We want ours decreased, and if it means that it's going to increase it a little bit on another street, then I mean that's neighborly. Somebody used the term not being neighborly for us to expect for them to get traffic increase in order for us to get decrease. No, we're not asking them to take all of the load. We're asking to share. That's what neighbors do, is share. And that's what my whole point was to that survey, is that I don't think they were being heard, because I am they asked what we wanted, I am more in favor of one way or something. I want both. The traffic calming, and we talked about this in the Zoom meeting. Is there an option to do both? And what I read in Tool's thing, he pulled out the pieces. I read the whole thing when you guys posted it. They recommended operational changes, or not, or you could do this. There were two options given: non-operational changes and or including one way as well. So I think if you do non-operational and one way, if you do the traffic calming in one way, it's going to do exactly what we said. It's going to make it so undesirable that these people that you're talking about are going to go somewhere else. They're not going to come, they're not even going to turn on to Woodward Heights anymore because it's miserable. So that's the thing. I think you should look at both options, not just one. And then I also, if I heard him correctly, he said, well, we can't really afford to make them look nice, so it's probably going to be concrete barriers and yellow posts. How would anybody else that lives on any other street in Pleasant Ridge feel about that being what they look at every day? Yellow posts and concrete barriers on a residential street. We did a island and chicane right in front of the elementary school, and it's nice. It's got little wooded areas on it. Well, so we can do that there, but on Woodward Heights, because we're a poorer street, is what I'm hearing you say. Our house costs less. We chose to live there on a connector street. We now have to say, okay, just put up yellow posts and concrete barriers? Is that what I'm hearing you say?
Yeah, if I may,
This is not fair.
So if I may, I'll just respond to some of the things that you've said, just so that I'll give you my perspective. let's start with barriers and what they might look like. I think what we suggested, or what he suggested, is we have things that we can do right away so that you see an immediate improvement. But getting any work done anywhere on roads takes time now. It took us 18 months to find a paint striper. So there are improvements that we'd like to do right away, just so that you see improvement right away, knowing that over time there might be a more expensive solution that goes in, but takes time to put in. Rather than wait for that long-term solution to go in, we'd put something in now so that you would see some immediate improvement. So I think that's what is being suggested. There's probably some phase-in of this, and we haven't even seen a final design from Tool. That's one of the things we'd be voting on today if we were to take that direction, to see what exactly they'd like to do, and then that gives us an opportunity to do something now at a low cost that is then later replaced by something that is nice, because as you suggested, I'm sure as Jim means, every street deserves to have a nice solution. That's what we do here. With regard to being offended, I'd say it this way. Every house in this town has a market price. It's set by market conditions. And Woodward Heights is no different than any other street in town. If my house were on Woodward Heights or on Oxford or on Maplefield, I'd get a different price for my house depending upon what street it's on, depending on the road conditions, depending on how many dogs walk down the street. There are all kinds of things that drive the market price. And Woodward Heights, being one of those roads that we know and has since, at least by my math, since 1931, been a road that goes east, has a market effect. It's just how the road is. There's a railroad track going across it, and that has an impact on the value of the home and how it's used and what anybody's paid for their home on that street or any street in Pleasant Ridge.
So we don't deserve the same road conditions because we
No,
pay
that's not what we're
less for
saying.
our
I think where
homes.
we started was we
not what
have
he
three
said.
tiers of kinds of roads in town. We have Woodward Heights is kind of like Ridge and Oakland Park. The traffic is higher on those three streets. We know it. And we've been consistently trying to make improvements on all three of those streets, actually, over time to make them more comfortable for people. In fact, at one point we had used the phrase curb comfort because we're that kind of town where we can say things like curb comfort. We really wanted the streets to be comfortable for neighbors, also for people that are using the street, for anyone that uses the street. And Woodward Heights is no different. We spent a lot of time working on Woodward Heights. This survey is an example of our intention to hear the neighbors. I said the other point is, I think 58 of the 277 respondents to the survey were Woodward Heights residents, by far the most. So I'm very comfortable saying that Woodward Heights residents have been heard. Anybody that's wanted to be heard has been heard. You're here tonight to be heard. So I would hate for anyone on Woodward Heights to feel that you've not had an opportunity to be heard. And we got a lot of feedback, especially if you read through the back pages of the survey, to show the vast amount of different solutions that people recommended. I think the thing that amazed me about the survey is that we went into it thinking maybe there were 2 or 3 things we might want to do. And then the conversation actually stretched onto Woodward and how we might move around U-turns and how we might affect other options. And the 2 things that Tool has brought to us are the things that popped out to be highest on the survey and also seem to make most sense in terms of controlling traffic. So I think we've heard Woodward Heights residents. If somebody really wanted to be heard, they've been heard. And this is how these things have popped up and part of why Tool has made those recommendations.
So you just mentioned something that I wanted to touch on, and then I'm done. From the beginning, I also mentioned, and never heard it mentioned again until you just said it. We can do all these studies all day long. I sit there, like today, I sat there between 10 minutes till 5 and 10 minutes till 6 and counted 102 cars in front of my house. And at no less than 5 to 6 cars deep for that entire hour. And like you said, horns honking and all of that. I said from the beginning, and you walked off my front porch to go look and make sure what I was saying was true. That stoplight at Fairwood has no use. None. None. It needs to be moved south to get as, and we're talking about, it takes us down that path of the marijuana dispensary. We're talking about putting a lot more cars. There is no break for anybody on Woodward Heights trying to get to that turnaround, because in all intents and purposes, that is the last turnaround. Nobody knows that the one's up there right before the ditch. They're using that one directly across from Woodward Heights, and they sit there on Woodward Heights. I sat there for 15 minutes at the Indiana stop sign the other day, just trying to get to my driveway. If they could give traffic a break, that will solve some of the problems you have on Woodward Heights. And that has never been mentioned. Again, not in Tool's study, not in anything that we've talked about. It's never been mentioned again. And
So, if I may,
yeah.
so if I may, it isn't that it hasn't been looked at. It's that in the same way that Gainsborough and Horton, which connects to Bermuda, and Oak Ridge aren't our roads, Woodward is not our road. So it's not that it's something that we wouldn't consider. It's going to take considerable conversation with MDOT or the state,
Because
We've
already
already
started.
which we've already had. And it's
we don't
so it's
know
not that it hasn't been
MDOT.
looked
So
at.
it's-
It's just not ours to fix. So you've been heard
Right.
on that point. Just to say,
But it
that.
was never even mentioned again, so nobody knows that it's even been a thought. And then, you talked about somebody talked about the 9 Mile and stuff like that. I don't know if you guys follow like Ferndale Forum or any of the other surrounding things. Since this road diet or whatever they're doing right now has begun, Woodward Heights is hot topic on Ferndale Forum about how we're not going down 9 Mile anymore. Woodward Heights traffic, and it's even getting worse than 9 Mile. It's a hot topic on Ferndale Forum talking about Woodward Heights. So now all the Ferndale people are going, okay, well, that's going to be our option now. So the problem is going to be, it's going to be horrible. And Tool Design, the company that we have hired to do this, is the company that did the road diet on 9 Mile. They have a fabulous marketing plan.
So I'm going to suggest that we give some time for others, but I really do. Trust me that people in Woodward Heights have been heard. If you are on Woodward Heights, you don't think you've been heard, write us, let us know what you're thinking. But I think we've heard from a lot of folks on Woodward Heights and Sylvan, and not many from Fairwood yet, but I'm sure it'll happen. So, but if anyone else would like to say something, please.
Hi, I'm Nancy Wellinger. I live at 12 Sylvan, and I'm speaking on behalf of a group of us who got together on Sylvan and tried to say, where do we stand based on the most recent report that you shared with us? And I agree, the woman who just spoke. It is a sharing situation. We are a community, and it is important that we honor each other's goals, and we are connected streets. So we met, we talked, and then each of us went and talked to one of the blocks of the 3 blocks of Sylvan. So I'm not speaking emphatically or, finally for all of them, but I can speak to the consensus that came out of those discussions. And it is that we are in favor of the option 5, which is to let traffic calming start to work at the problem, and to let what's cool about the whether they're bumps or whether they're humps or whether they're tables, they begin to start to. And thank you for the graphic description of what really happens when you are a truck driver going over. That's very helpful. They seem to be very powerful options to begin to build upon, to take people out of everyone thinking that Woodward Heights is the big, straight through for everyone. So Sylvan residents are willing to take some of it on and share some of it. So it was I came away from the discussions of we're not throwing it to anyone else. We're trying to work together as a community, with the hope that at some point we could get some of those calming things on our street as well. If we start to bear more of the brunt, can we get, bumps, humps, / chicanes, or tables or whatever? And everything is a budget consideration and move slowly. But we want to be moving toward feathering the burden that each street carries in the community. Yeah, okay, sure.
Thank you very much. Do you have a question? Sorry.
Well, I was just going to say, there's the traffic calming manual. I don't think they need to take on any additional traffic, Sylvan, as a street. If they want to explore traffic calming, they can follow the procedure in this, right? Which would include survey.
For
right?
sure.
So,
Hi.
Good morning. Good evening.
Good evening.
been a long
yes,
day.
it is. Whatever it is. I walked here, so it's something.
Oh my goodness.
Mark Kolgman, 63 Woodward Heights. And I've talked with Jim before, and he probably knows what I'm going to say about the one-way street. And I think it would be a benefit to not only Woodward Heights if we made it one-way, and we blocked off the borders at Fairwood and Sylvan, so that no cars could cut through and go up those streets. We could put a proper bike lane on Woodward Heights to continue that bike lane that's on the other side of the tracks. You know, would widen the bike lane for that purpose. And it would eliminate half of our traffic and most of the truck traffic, because most of it comes from the east side. I just think I know that we would have an issue, at least until you were to figure out some sort of a solution at the points where the barricades were built. You don't have to put anything fancy. You could put up 3 of those planters across the street and, you know, just so cars can't get through there, whatever. That's not real expensive, I don't think. And I went over to, and you might say, well, what are we going to do with plowing and garbage pickup? Well, garbage trucks do go in reverse, so that's not a issue. The plowing would probably be a bigger concern. But Ferndale has solved this problem on Inman and the other streets that they barricaded at the service drive down there. There are 26 houses per side on some of those streets. We only have 10 per side on Fairwood and Sylvan, from where Bermuda and the barricade would be. So that would be a possibility there. As far as the plowing goes, I don't know. We just have to push it into the park or whatever temporarily until you figure out if you want to put a turnaround there or whatever. Fairwood, I don't know what you do. I just don't know what to do there. But it would reduce all the eastbound traffic or the westbound traffic on Sylvan. It would cut your traffic down in half. And Fairwood doesn't get that much, so they'd be reduced even more. The only people that would have an issue with this would be probably the people that are on the east side of Bermuda and Pleasant Ridge, back to the train tracks, because we would all have to leave our driveways and go east. So I'm willing to do that and go around the corner and go up the other way up into Ferndale and use their street for a change.
I'm willing to do it too.
Yeah. So, but I really think that would be a great solution. It would we wouldn't have to. Sylvan would have traffic reduced. Fairwood would have traffic reduced, and we'd have half of our traffic reduced anyway. And the monetary input of putting up a couple signs one way and some traffic enforcement to make sure that happens, I really think that would be the most reasonable solution. I've lived here for 47 and a half years, and I've seen that street change a lot over those years. And I know one thing, in the last 5 or 6 years, the traffic is like triple what it used to be, and the truck traffic is terrible.
One comment to you, and please someone correct me if I'm wrong, but that solution does cut off the east side from being able to enter it from any way except Woodward. So we are essentially cutting off the east side from the rest of
You're right. You would have
our communities.
You would have to do.
We would have to go out
You
to
have to
Woodward.
go up.
So you
make
would be,
the left where everybody can go into the Ferndale up the first street. or two.
I did just want to clarify that solution, though, does essentially cut us off.
Right.
Okay.
But you would still have access. Emergency vehicles would still have access. I'm sure they can put their sirens on, and people are going to stop on, Woodward Heights if they have to cross there. The streets, emergency vehicles, manage to get down Maywood and, all the other streets, Kensington and them, because there's no east side access to any of those streets either. So they all use Bermuda or Indiana to get the emergency vehicles up there. So that's just my opinion.
I like your
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening.
Jim, just a quick comment. How much has traffic increased? I think it's a few hundred cars a day.
Well, from 2015, it's about 1,000 cars a day.
1,000 cars a day. Okay.
It's 3,000-ish to 4,000.
4,000-ish. Yeah. Thank you.
From
And
15, you said?
From 2015, yeah.
Yeah.
And we've seen that on all the level 1 and 2 streets.
Exactly.
They're all up about 20%.
Right.
What months exactly did they do the survey in? Because I feel like they were doing it, or not the survey, but the traffic study. I feel like they were doing it in non-school times versus when people are in school. And there's distinctly a different when school is in session. There is much more traffic. And I feel like that was not factored into this. Because when I remember seeing the cameras and things like that, it was summer months and during COVID when schools were shut.
So the tool did their traffic counts in June.
Early June. I
Yeah,
thought.
early June.
Yeah,
And
so-
so actually, they did their counts when Camborne was closed in Ferndale. We saw traffic has come down a little bit since they did their study, but it was while school was in session and Camborne was closed.
Okay, thank you.
For the record, name and address. I know, but you have to.
Sorry. Kelly Sadler, 3 Woodward Heights.
Thank you. Is there anybody else that'd like to? Please.
Hi, my name is Zachary Zombo. I'm on 7 Sylvan, so pretty close to Woodward. One of the things I think I'm hearing from everybody is, cars are driving too damn fast. And the reason they're doing that is because they found a shortcut from one way to another. So I think what everyone's kind of said here today is we need some barricades up. I've cut my grass a lot. I'm out there raking leaves all the time, and I'm right off the road and almost getting hit by a car on a road that's supposed to be 25. That's probably going 50. And that's the reason my wife and I are here today, is just because she saw it happen, and we got a little nervous after, someone texting on their phone, almost hitting a curb and almost hitting me. I know Mark and Kate here, other people from, Sylvan are here, and with us living so close to Woodward and that light right there, someone sees that light turn green, they hit the NOS button in their car, full throttle, 80 miles per hour to that light. So, regardless of whatever happens with the traffic is going to be here to stay. We live in a very populated area. There's no way around it. It is what it is. We just have to make sure those paths from A to B have way more resistance than they currently have. With that being said, I really appreciate living in the city. We've been here about a year. We can't say enough about living here in Pleasant Ridge amongst all of you guys, and just wanted to say thank you as well. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, and welcome.
You're welcome. Yeah, we're glad you didn't get run over. I've had the same thing.
Please.
Hi, Max Darling, 16 Sullivan Avenue. Hi, Mayor Scott, city commissioners. Hello, everybody. I absolutely agree because I do travel on Woodward Heights, and I especially understand your situation about that first block because I do a lot of business at Regeneration. It's impossible. It's absolutely impossible, that part of it, I know. I avoid taking Woodward Heights when I'm going home because I can cut over on Gainsborough and I can go home. But the traffic and the speed on Sylvan has been an increasing problem since I bought my home. I bought mine before they closed off Fairwood. And they closed off Fairwood kind of in the still of the night. Like, it just happened. Right? Yeah, for us old timers. Somehow I'm an old timer now. And from then on, I started noticing, because I work out of my home, I walk my dogs every hour and a half to 2 hours. I'm out there seeing, I can't even believe what I'm seeing. Rolling through stop signs, taking the turn without even stopping. I've had them clip the curb where my dog is. I could have come at any of these meetings and said all of that. I just am extra cautious for it. I grin and I bear it, and I shout out some really choice non-profanities, but I do. Unfortunately, this summer, I've had 2 cars that have been clipped in front of my home, literally where they have knocked the rear view mirror off and smashed the whole side. That's happened twice since I've lived there, and one of them was a drunk driver, turned out. Lived on Woodward Heights. I hope he's not here. It was kind of funny because actually it was Kurt, our mayor, who was behind this person and followed them home and came to me and said, "This is what happened," in case you were wondering. They didn't even know that was my car. So that was then. This is now. This summer, I was backing out of my driveway and I literally got whiplash. You asked me how. Someone was barreling down Sylvan, and my automatic brake flew on. My seatbelt wasn't on. It threw me into the seat. My belongings flew into the back of my car, and I was so thrown by that. I didn't say anything to anybody. It just I dealt with it. I had pneumonia at the time, so it really wasn't a great thing. But that is to do with the speed. Indiana is treacherous. I love the term you used, Nancy, was feathering. I really liked that. Yeah. I also like the thought of a speed bump. Put it like right in front of my house. I don't care. I wanted it. I wanted it at the other end because they're businesses with driveways, and people are doing these weird things where they don't know where they are. They're turning around. People come into Pleasant Ridge and they're lost somehow. I'm not even sure they know what they're doing. The person that caused my accident or injury, I saw her. She was on her cell phone and she was just barreling down. And the odd thing is there was a UPS truck parked backwards, as far as I'm concerned, on my side. Thank God there wasn't somebody crossing or a car turning there, because there would have been a major accident. I'm the one who got the accident. I'm not going to be that person who turns my car around to head out into my driveway, because that's just not me. But the idea of I like the idea of the feathering, and then there really just has to be something done about the speed, and then the speed turning from Indiana, because there's a lot of speed going on in Indiana. I haven't read into the research on that. And there's a lot of Pleasant Ridge people who are barreling back and forth, as we are. We're the gateway to Woodward and across to the other side of Pleasant Ridge, and we're the gateway to Ferndale. We're people who know that they need to get to Ferndale. I've done it. If I need to get to one side of Ferndale, I cut across, not speeding. I'm not speeding, but I know I'm going to go straight across Sylvan onto Oxford or onto Oakland and just keep going. So and then yes, there's so many factors. I'll just leave it at that. The speed and speed bumps and feathering. I'm gonna really think about that. And I do understand what I do drive on Woodward Heights enough to know that it's a problem. I wouldn't want it to be me. I've realized what it's become on Sylvan since Fairwood, and then this increase with traffic is beyond me. I stand there and I can't even believe sometimes how many cars are coming back and forth, and trucks and whatnot. So thank you.
Thank you. Was there anyone else that'd like to?
I'm Krista Reed. I'm at 46 Sylvan. I'm a new voice to this issue. It was the report that caught my attention. If you don't mind, I've read a few points in text that I'll just read. It's probably easier for me to remember. So with the recent change of the stop sign location on Woodward Heights, I've noticed it makes left turns harder from Gainsborough onto Woodward Heights. And it just makes me wonder, and by the way, I'm not opposed to switching the sign back. It just makes me wonder, was that anticipated in the last report? And what's not anticipated in this report? There's mention of Oak Ridge as an alternative. That's really not, that's Tool not knowing the neighborhood. Because no one's going to Oak Ridge with the school, timing and everything. I've lived in the area for a long time. As mentioned before, Sylvan was burdened. I don't know when this happened, but when Fairwood closed the end there I don't know how many years ago. I guess if we're considering all options here, and especially now that Cork's not going to reopen, why don't we consider also then busting out the end cap there on, I meant Fairwood, I might have said Maywood, Fairwood. And not that I actually want that to happen, but I'm just making the point, let's look at everything then. When did that decision get made? When did the decision get made to put no turn on red from Sylvan on to Woodward, probably to slow traffic so that people aren't trying to make that turn as quickly when it's a green light. I've chosen to go up another block to Maywood. That's affected their street. Was that considered when that was put in? So I'm just making the point, we're all affected by all these traffic issues. I understand Woodward Heights, your traffic has increased. Other streets have increased as well, as was mentioned here. I also wanted to say, bikers, the biking community will naturally continue on Sylvan. It's just the safer road. Woodward Heights will not be the biking street. And for that reason, it's better to keep this less traffic on Sylvan. My vote is no changes at all. I'm not with the consensus about sharing the burden. If I had my druthers, I'm going to be selfish. And yes, I don't want any changes. That's the honest truth. If we're going to do option 5, I think Sylvan should also have deterrents. But I would not like option 5.
I'm sorry, Sylvan should have what?
So Sylvan should also have deterrents.
Oh, deterrence, okay. I thought you said detergent.
And though it's not popular, I support what the city manager said. The price per square foot on Woodward Heights is lower because it's a busier street. It got busier. They want others to share the burden. It's unfortunate. I'm sorry. My vote is for no changes, if I were to have a vote. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much. Was there anyone else? Yes, please. I'm sorry, would you like to?
Well, I was just gonna say, that's the second time it came up as far as Sylvan implementing some sort of traffic calming. Like, so I just want to make sure the point lands that if Sylvan, like, separate from this conversation, any street is allowed to follow the traffic calming manual, get a neighborhood, not neighborhood, but block-wide survey going. And if it is something like adding chicanes or tabletops or speed bumps, then you bring it to the city commission. And there's a written and established process for this. So,
But that hasn't worked for Woodward Heights so far, my understanding is correct.
there hasn't been consensus around what the solution is, which is what we're talking about now. But like, if 90% of people on Sylvan said, "Sweet, let's do tabletops," then that would be an easy
50%.
So, and Commissioner Lenko is correct. Woodward Heights did do a petition, and this study is the result of that petition that Woodward Heights did. So it's happening. Something's happening. Things are happening. We're studying the issue. The commission has to decide what happens next. So there is a process that a street can start this close look. And if we do anything on Woodward Heights, we'll absolutely be tracking what happens on Sylvan. We've been collecting the data from the before times on Sylvan, just like we have on Woodward Heights. So we'll be able to benchmark, where we were, what happens, what we need to do next. That's definitely on the radar.
Thank you. Megan Takashima. I'm at 32 Fairwood Boulevard. And I won't say that I speak for the street of Fairwood, but I figured someone from Fairwood might want to speak. I will say I moved in probably about a year before they closed Fairwood at the dead of night, and I recognize that that's been beneficial for having not a lot of traffic. I'm in the second block, and it's a relatively calm street, so I understand the frustrations of the folks on Woodward Heights. I think my question, though, is does it make sense to go to the furthest extreme we can that reduces our accessibility to our neighborhoods if we can start with the traffic calming and see what effect that has? Because it does sound like there are a lot of things that really haven't been sorted out if we were to turn Woodward Heights into a one-way street. And so I guess I would consider that we start with the more manageable, less expensive option that may have the ability to calm traffic and see what effect that has before we go to, a really extreme option. So just my thought. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Was there anyone else? Going once? Okay. I guess it's time for us to have a conversation. Any thoughts on everything we've heard?
I can start us off, if you don't mind.
Yes, please.
The way I see it, and I have spent a lot of time thinking about this and listening, and I have been listening, and I have, I read the report at least 3 times, reading through all the comments, so I have been listening. But what I see more than anything is traffic everywhere has increased. We know that. We are living in this inner ring suburb where everything has increased around us. We are abutting Woodward. We have commercial businesses. We are going to forever be dealing with traffic, and traffic is constantly changing. So had we had this conversation, let's say 4 years ago before COVID, the conversation might be moot now because COVID changed things so much. So this is going to be something that as a city, we are going to have to constantly be adjusting and constantly be managing, whatever we do. And we are going to be constantly having to look at different parts of the city and different streets. So I want to, in my mind, look at this as an ongoing traffic management for the city, whether it be for Woodward Heights, whether it then goes to Sylvan, whether it goes to other streets. But we are going to forever have to be adjusting and making adjustments. We live, traffic is a way of life in Pleasant Ridge. If you don't like living with all the traffic, that's not going to change in Pleasant Ridge. I mean, it's just not. I mean, this is where we live. This is where we chose to live. So, and just in terms of your comment, at the end of the day, whatever we decide to do is going to take a lot of time, and it also is going to be expensive. So part of this conversation is also going to ultimately be funding. And so having kind of short-term solutions while we work that out over the year, the 2 years that it takes to not only put together the funding, but also to build these things, having, you know, what Jim had mentioned, having paint and bolsters, is that the right word? And cheaper and probably less attractive, you know, physically attractive solutions is a good stepping stone, because nothing is fast and nothing is cheap. So, you know, we do need to, again, talk about in the future the financial part of it also. And I guess the last thing I'm going to say is that in terms of calming, what I see in calming is at this point doing those chicanes, as people mentioned, the traffic calming on 9 Mile as it pushed traffic to other streets. That is a way that we can help, to use your word, to help feather it, to help share the burden, to keep cars off of Woodward Heights and pushing them to other streets allows us to all share the burden. And I think that's also true, and will be a similar conversation that we have in the future with other streets also, you know, because, so that was my ramble, so thank you.
Anything? I do. Oh, yeah, no, I'll go. So, Jim, quick question. If you could rate option number 4, which would be going one way out Gainsborough, and collaborating with coordinating with Ferndale, how would you, on a scale of 1 to 10, like
3 or 4?
3 or 4?
No, I'm asking which option.
Number 4.
Option 4.
Okay.
Which is the one that takes Ferndale's cooperation into account, or
So Ferndale came to us and said, we want to close Camborne because it's just too busy. Yeah, you know, this is a ridiculous example, but, and we're going to make it such that all that traffic's going to reroute to Woodward Heights. You as a policymaker, what would your response to that be? Because that's essentially what we're asking them to do.
right, need to know a whole lot more information. So, but like, is that a 0, I guess? So instead of turning the question back on me, but is that a 0 or is it a 3 or a 5? Like, I'm just trying to gauge this because we have a relationship with Ferndale. You have a relationship with Ferndale City Manager. Like, it wouldn't just be an alien out of the blue question. Like, you want to shut down? The obvious answer is no.
Ferndale would never approve closing Gainsborough to push, in addition to push all of the traffic to Ferndale streets.
All right, so if it's a
because they have elected officials who answer to their constituents.
Okay.
And just from the preliminary conversations we've had, they're not going to do that.
All right, I'm just trying to eliminate options. So then, and then the one that was kind of unlisted that you kind of showed was closing the Pleasant Ridge roads, which would be something we have authority to do.
Yeah, and Toole didn't even recommend that.
Right. So as far as like, because I'm operating under give the staff, give you guys direction, and then move Toole into the design phase. Is that something they could consider kind of in parallel with building the recommendation for option? Like, to me, anyways, to answer the question, I think 5 is it's an and/or statement, right? Like, it's an and. We do 5 and something else, or nothing else. But at least 5. I really appreciate Howard's comment about the bumps, because that is a calming measure that does result in reduction, at least, of trucks, which is a big concern. So I like 5, but also I don't know if this unlisted option is even conceivable, and then what the public's perspective of that would be.
So here's the thing you need to be ready for with option 5 is, well, you know, like we've heard through this conversation, well, you close Fairwood. And I don't know why Fairwood was closed, I guess to create a parking lot. Philosophically, I don't agree with closing Fairwood, and I wouldn't have been in support of that. But if the solution to our to traffic problems is going to be, okay, well, yeah, we'll just block off all the streets. We'll follow that through to its kind of logical conclusion. Okay, well, there's a lot of traffic on Ridge. And, I live on Maplefield, and that's a connector into Oak Park. We get cut through traffic there, too. So I want Maplefield closed, and I want Ridge closed now. So essentially, this takes us down a path to Pleasant Ridge as a gated community, and the losers are the last two streets that are open, because there's got to be one way in and out from Woodward. So it's probably Oakland Park and Sylvan that stay open, because that's where the light is. I mean, that is kind of the logical conclusion, when you bring this line of thinking through. So I don't know. I mean, it's difficult physically to make it work because of the driveways we have out there to close the streets off at the border. We have emergency vehicle access we have to consider. So how do they get in? So I don't know.
And there was also the conversation of becoming a gated community. I mean, even in shutting the streets off, you are cutting off the east side. And I would suggest that many people chose Pleasant Ridge because of the access to the surrounding communities. And they did not choose to live in a gated community or somewhere that was cut off.
And slight correction, so on both the, it wouldn't be closed off from Woodward. It'd just be closed off on the back end. So it wouldn't be as extreme as Palmer Woods that has their roads closed off along Woodward too, right?
No, I'm just saying it would be a bigger conversation. Am I making that noise? Oh, Ann is. No. Sorry. No, sorry. I was like, I'm just saying that. I think it's a different conversation.
And then as far as access goes too, for instance, I like to walk and bike. So I chose this area because I can get to Ferndale and Royal Oak and lots of places without having to jump in a car. So, from that perspective too, reduced vehicle, walking dogs and stuff, I don't know.
No, I just think it's a different. My only point is I think it becomes a little bit of a different conversation, and maybe a conversation that encompasses more people, and we start listening to more people about the idea of really shutting it off.
Okay. So, no, that helps. So option 4 is no, that unlisted option is a serious no. And then option 5 is kind of this traffic calming, chicanes, and speed bumps. So I'm in support of this, but do we need to have another public hearing or anything like this? Or is this the forum of conversation before moving?
It's just a design phase at this point, correct, Mayor?
Yeah, ultimately, there's a motion that would be needed to move first to accept what Tool has told us, and then to propose one or both or something else.
Yeah, Mayor, if I could,
Please.
put a bow on it. No, I appreciate everybody coming out. We should always have an accounting firm come first so we can get this crowd to see.
Exactly.
No, but in all seriousness, it's a few thoughts. If Tool's design on 9 Mile empirically is working, I'm hoping that it's going to work.
Because what we have part of the problem. That's what I was saying. The marketing
Right,
plan.
I hear you. And let's say, on that line of thinking, if it does, then it should then work again. When we implement something that they've designed, it should then divert traffic, at least under that logic of what they have designed works. There are always unintended impacts too. So I guess whatever we decide to do, I just ask for just some gracious understanding that it's going to take time. And that anything the city has done, if you look in the past, 10 years, anything the city has put forth, whether it be a structure at Gainsborough or over at the pool, everything has been top notch, and I would expect nothing less to go into Woodward Heights. It might be temporary where we get some things in place, but there's no reason it would be anything less than what you see in this community. The gradual approach, I think Megan from Fairwood, she's back there. Yeah, I think that makes sense intuitively that, in surgery, you don't start with the most aggressive or extreme typically. If you think you can mitigate something, you try and you suss it out to see what happens. So I guess at this point, I'm always open to discussing other things. I think that's the beauty of it, and keeping, the energy that way. That said, we need to start somewhere, and I'm very optimistic about what Tool has brought forth with the fifth option. I think it's a good start, and see what happens, and give it time to do its thing. So at the very least, I'd like to start with that process and then go from there.
Yeah, just to add to everyone's comments, we know that in this area we've seen a lot of road construction. It's just a part of life in Michigan right now. A lot of us call it coneflowers, which is coneflower season all season. So we know that I-75 has been under construction. Many of the bridges crossing I-75 have been closed, or it's been severely impaired to use them. And because the bridge connecting Stevens and Woodward Heights is one of those bridges that's been open, it's no surprise to me that Woodward Heights has seen probably its share of traffic and an increase in traffic in the same way that we've seen an increase in traffic along Woodward Avenue because of all of the construction on I-75 and adjacent roads. So nobody here is saying Woodward Heights hasn't seen its share of traffic in the last 5 years. It's there. Part of the reason we've done this study, part of the reason we've had several workshops and did the survey is because we all know that there's stuff going on. And not just on Woodward Heights, but on other roads too. So I hope everyone appreciates that. It was the feedback from the folks on Woodward Heights that helped get this started. It's not unappreciated. I will tell you, I've heard it. I've been on WDIV. I've heard it. So I know it's there. And that's what's leading us to this work. As several folks have said here, I think it's a process to make those changes happen. Because of all the rest of the road construction that's happening right now, Pleasant Ridge being a small community and having a small voice in getting things done, it'll take a while for this to happen. We're happy that Tool is engaged with us so they can get us a plan, but it's not going to come into fruition right away. Even if we approve it tonight with a blank check, we knew that this just can't happen instantly. But we want you to understand that this is a priority for us to do something that might impact other streets. I mean, traffic is here to stay for a while, maybe for a long while, because like me, I'm not working from any office anymore. So I see everything all day. I'm more attuned to what's going on. I'm sure many of you are. And a lot of us are working from home or actually on the road more. We see that in data all across the country. So we're hoping that this helps alleviate that. For the folks on Sylvan and Fairwood, this may be something that, as Alex has said, will deserve follow-up on your streets later. Could be any street, but let's measure it on Woodward Heights first, assuming it's requested, and see how we do, and then move it forward from there. So I think that's kind of where we're at. But please, if you're on Woodward Heights, we have heard you. It's not a question of not being heard. It's certainly not a question of you're not having an opportunity to be heard. You have been heard. And this is what has brought us here tonight.
I think Jim's comment, actually, and I just wanted to reiterate that, but the coming together and doing the initial survey really did start this process. So this is a process that has been started and is working because you came together to say, hey, there's a problem. So this is not done against you. This is done with you. You have identified a problem, and
nothing's got done yet. That's the problem. It's been going on, a lot of talk.
Well, someone will make a motion tonight to get something going.
Your Honor?
Even if you can do temporary, you don't have to wait for being.
So let us do our work.
Do your thing.
Thank you.
One final question.
Yes,
On
please.
The design phase, I don't know how specific, I used to be a buyer, so I don't know how specific we need to be, but are we asking Tool or directing city staff to move forward with the design phase with Tool, and do we specify a phased approach? Do we specify a budget, bands? If it is a phased approach, are we framing it for them at all, or is it just to give the staff direction to move Tool to design phase?
Yeah, Your Honor, in my mind, it was just gonna make a motion to move to the design phase and go from there with option 5, and then move on that way.
What was
Is there any? So if I may, Jim, do you need any more detail than that to move forward?
Chicanes and speed
So-
bumps.
The reason we're moving forward with
Not
Tool to do
operational.
the design plans is because Anderson Extreme Westrick, the city engineer, doesn't, and they'll admit this, they don't have really a strong traffic department. You know, they design streets according to normal street design, but they don't have, you know, this capability. If we were gonna engage them to do a concept plan or design plan for the entire length of a street, and I think Ferndale, there is some willingness to double back on something. There is some willingness on Ferndale's part to allow for some of these traffic calming elements to begin in Ferndale on Woodward Heights. That's a conversation we can have with them. Because if you start having a speed bump right where Gainsborough South is, that deters trucks from even getting to Pleasant Ridge. But to come back to it, we'd probably spend $15,000 or $20,000 on design plans for engineering design for something like this, just to put, you know, kind of a context around that.
From anyone.
From anyone, yeah. If we are engaging Anderson Eckstein, and so that's kind of the range I think we're looking at, 15 to 25 if you wanted a band.
Okay. And it makes sense to me that as Tool is very familiar with this, they can put the plan together. Yeah. A motion, I think.
Sure. Yeah, Mayor, I move that the City Commission receive and file the Tool Design recommendation for Woodward Heights and direct staff to work with Tool Design to develop and design a plan for Alternative 5 traffic calming with no operational changes.
A second.
Okay. Any other comments before we vote?
Yeah, sorry, Mayor.
Please.
No, it's to the gentleman's point, you know, this has been 5 years, 6 years of massaging. So I'm excited to see something done. And I feel for you. So I think this is a good place to be. So.
Could I just say one thing? Could we put up a speed sign, you know, let you know how fast you're going down that street?
Those digital signs.
Yeah, one of those digital signs.
So-
I know we were going to do that with our last proposed change. No, but I mean a permanent one.
So, sir, the question for everyone was maybe an electronic sign or something that would flash as we have on Ridge Road. If those of you that have been on Ridge Road, there's a sign that says 25 miles per hour and it shows you how fast you're going. Maybe that's something that Tool can figure into their plan or look at.
We didn't vote yet, right?
We have not voted yet.
I'll throw that on. Or can I? No, I can't.
No, and I don't think you have to.
Okay. I like the Oak Park one to say thank you.
Yes. All right. May we
Me
have a
too.
vote,
It's
please?
polite.
Commissioner Budnick?
Yes.
Commissioner Schmier?
Yes.
Commissioner Lenko?
Yes.
Mayor Scott?
Yes. The motion carries. Next step. Thank you, everyone, for coming.
Thank you, everyone.
More to follow.
Thanks for your engagement.
Yes.
Wait, you're leaving now?
Wait.
Before governmental reports? I have a lot of exciting things to say.
That's on TV.
Bonsoir.
Okay.
Yep.
Feels good
To get something.
Yeah, I thought the report was great. I think getting people thinking is great. I think
I agree.
Things take time.
Okay, I think we'll move on to governmental reports as people are shuffling out.
I'm sure what you guys are gonna do is important for past my bedtime.
Okay.
Thanks for coming.
We'll stay.
I was going to say the hands have their box
you.
seats. They're in for the long haul. They're VIP passes.
All right. What's happening in our police department?
Good evening.
Good evening.
It is November, so you get to see my face this month while the chief is out of town. Go over it every month that I'm up here. Every month the chief is up here. Lock your doors. The cities all around us are getting hit regularly, nightly. Larcenies from the cars. Unlocked cars, they're going in them. They're taking whatever they can. We're getting stolen cars. Not us. Royal Oak, Berkeley, Ferndale's getting some. Please lock your cars. People are just going, checking the doors. People are leaving key fobs in the cars. They're just taking off with the cars. So that alleviates a ton of our problems if you just lock your car doors. One point of interest is we did have a house broken into last week. We are on it. I have been working on that nonstop. Our officers have been working on it. We've been collaborating with area departments, and we are working on that diligently. So other than that, we've been holding our own. We've been doing very well while the other departments have been getting hit. We have not. So our guys are out there, as you see us every day. So any questions that I can answer for the commission?
No, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very
I appreciate
much.
it.
And by the way, thanks to the neighbors that helped that person whose house was broken, and they were very helpful, as I understand it.
Absolutely. I can't speak highly enough about the surveillance systems that some people are getting. I won't, tout one over the other. One of the neighbors had something that I joke rivals casino security.
Oh
so,
my!
We're doing well, but yeah.
Is it off the shelf or is it like home designed?
He works for a company that deals with that. So,
Okay.
but yeah, I was very impressed with his system. He has one that's very nice. But yeah, I did send out a ring alert. So those of you that have Ring doorbells and were on the west side probably got that from me. I did take one of the ones that came back. Might be something, might not. We're still working that out. But thank you to everyone that had the security systems and were helping out on that. We appreciate it.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Just a reminder, everyone, Black Friday's around the corner. Good time to buy a Ring doorbell. or
a
an
competitor.
equivalent.
Yes.
Equivalent. This is not an endorsement. Any other governmental reports tonight? Seeing none, I actually missed an item. Are there any public discussions on items that are not on the agenda? Did anyone have anything else to say beyond what we've already said? Okay. City Commission liaison reports. Commissioner Schmier.
Thank you, Mayor. Okay, I have a few important things. Number one, we are going to have 3 open seats on the Historic Commission starting in March. So please fill out applications. You can fill out an application online. You can fill one out here at the city. When the museum is open, we will have them there too. So we have 3 open seats starting in March. We did sell all of our ornaments. They are all sold out. So thank you for everyone who bought one. If you did not get one, we will be selling them again in the future, in another year. But you can also buy your 100-year tile if your house is 100 years old. You should have gotten a letter in the mail. And you basically reserve your tile, and then you will get them in get your 100-year tile in a few months. House tour. We have, I think, 5 or 6 houses already committed. We are still looking for a few more. So if anyone is interested in having their house on the tour this year in September, please reach out. And then the last thing is the Winter Village has been set up in the Historic Museum, and we are going to be open, actually. I had the dates right here. Hold on. We're going to be open twice in November and 3 times in December. So this Saturday will be open. We will also be open the Saturday after Thanksgiving, so 10 to 12 on both those days. We will be open the night of the tree lighting on December 5th. And then, sorry, I had the dates up and then I have lost them. And then we will be open 2 other times in December. So keep an eye. Hold on. I could go back to my email. Hold on. Oh, here we go. And then we'll also be open December 13th and before the City Commission meeting, and Saturday, December 17th. So feel free to come in, see the Winter Village, check out your folder, fill out an application for a seat on the commission, and that's all I have.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Commissioner Budnick on the Recreation Commission.
Thanks, Mayor. Treats for the troops collected 169 pounds of donated Halloween candy to take to Oakland County Sheriff's Department, 80 pounds of which I consumed. It feels that way, which is awesome. The tree lighting ceremony is, as Commissioner Schmier said, Monday, December 5th at 6 p.m. Always a big hit. That's at Memorial Park. So come and welcome the spirit of the season with your friends, neighbors, and Santa will be there. So stay for photos and stay for Santa. And don't forget, you get a light up wand if you'd like. So those were a big hit with the kids last year. Still have ours.
And the adults.
Yeah.
And the adults, of course. Some more Santa theme. We have Dinner with Santa Friday, December 9th at 6 o'clock. It's $10 per adult, 7 for kids, ages 2 to 17. Registration begins on 10/1, and Pictures with Santa will be held during this time frame as well. So children under 2 are free for that part. And letters to Santa, those are all due Friday, December 16th. So every year, Santa looks forward to hearing from his friends in Pleasant Ridge. Mailboxes will be located at the community center and City Hall to receive your letters. So include your name and address on the letter so that Santa can write back. So go on and get wishing, and it's open to PR residents only. Gingerbread house making is Tuesday, December 20th at 6 p.m. The cost is $20. Pizza dinner is included in that. Registration begins on 10/1. Join us for a festive morning learning how to make your very own gingerbread house, and every participant gets to keep their decorated house at the end with holiday tunes playing and hot cocoa flowing. Wow. Sounds great. Spread the holiday spirit by inviting friends to join you in this special event. This is a drop-off event for kids K through 6. And winding down here, the 50-plus club day trip is to One-Eyed Jack's Thursday, December 1st. The cost is $10. Lunch cost is on your own. Bring the summer game of cornhole indoors. And we will have next meeting before these events. However, they are wildly popular and they do sell out, so don't delay. Register today. And finally, one last thing, bringing this full circle. The winner of guessing the weight contest, which was put on by Jay Foreman, the winner was Craig Bentley, who won the Halloween weight contest with all that candy. He guessed the exact weight of 169 pounds, and he won a gift bag from the rec department. So it was kind of a fun little thing that Jay Foreman had going on. So I think that does it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
My pleasure.
Commissioner Lenko on the schools.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. And Jim, did we figure it out? So that, there we go. Okay, so schools, couple of things. Again, first of all, I want to promote and plug the YouTube channel for the school board meetings as well as the e-blast. Go to Ferndale Schools website and sign up for the e-blast. Biggest topic to report back on is a proposed millage coming for vote in May. I have the link here. I believe it's on the Chiron in the YouTube presentation, and it's on the Facebook conversation as well. So there's links to it. According to the latest e-blast, November 29th, tentatively scheduled. There will be a public forum on the topic. There is one tonight, which conflicted with this meeting. So anybody who's interested in learning more about the plans behind the millage, I encourage you to check out the information on the website and attend any meetings as you so choose. What else? So, and the other big one, cool, is the phenomenal Ferndale Golden Eagle Marching Band won the state championship. So that's an amazing, talented, yeah, very cool. Not even recognition, but like they earned it. So that's sweet. Okay, that's all I got.
Thank you very much. Can Commissioner Perry
She can if we can hear her.
And you want it? Can you hear?
You're on
Wait,
mute.
you're on mute. You're muted. Yeah.
The Planning Commission has not met this month. I think, actually, we did meet, and sorry, I was not prepared to give a report because I wasn't there, but,
Ann? Would you like me to give the report for you?
would you please? Thank
Sure.
you.
That might work.
The Planning Commission met in October. They had a public hearing on some zoning amendments, which are on your agenda for later. So we'll talk in more detail about those. That was the highlight of their meeting. So,
Thank you very much. Thanks, Ann.
Thank you.
All right, let's move on to the consent agenda. Nothing big to report here. May I have a motion?
Mayor, I move we approve the consent agenda as presented.
Is there a second?
Second.
May I have a vote, please?
Commissioner Lenko?
Yes.
Commissioner Schmier?
Yes.
Commissioner Budnick?
Yes.
Mayor Scott?
Yes, the motion carries. Okay, on to the whistle stop. Jim?
Yes, we introduced this item last month. There's been a change of ownership at the Whistle Stop. It's been a number of months now. Along with that sale of the business came a sale of the liquor license, which requires city commission approval to transfer the liquor license from the prior owner to the current owner. As noted, it's been a seamless transition. We haven't had any complaints or any, I think most people didn't even notice that ownership had changed, and I think that's a good thing, and I think that's a testament to the new owners picking up and taking the ball and running with it. The previous owners had done a lot to address a lot of the neighborhood interface and impact issues that Mays had. And the prospective owner of the liquor license is keeping the operating agreement exactly the same as existed before. So we had addressed most of those issues with the prior owner. Things are in a pretty good place with the restaurant right now, and staff has no objections to the transfer. So this does require a public hearing, and then city commission approval of the transfer of the liquor license.
Excellent. All right, so public hearing first?
Yeah, the new owners are here if you'd
Oh,
like
yeah.
to give them a chance to say anything.
Yes,
or-
please. Would you like to say something?
Well, not really.
Okay.
Everybody left already.
Thanks for hanging in there.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I'm Steve Grobel. I'm the attorney for Arbin and Bessem Garchevsky, who are the new owners. So, and we're pretty happy to talk about something besides traffic tonight. So, yeah, I think as Mr. Bruckman mentioned, Arbin took over in August, and I think that's right. I think a lot of people didn't even realize there's been a change. I mean, they have left and maintained the restaurant sort of as it was before. Same hours, same operation, same good food. So we have filed our application with the MLCC to transfer that Class C liquor license. We are pretty close. We're probably about a month out, I expect, from approval, but we are through the investigation stage. Everything has gone well. There have been no issues with the MLCC. So, frankly, knock on wood, we would expect an approval probably around a month, although with the holidays, things are a little slowing down up there with the MLCC. But we came tonight because we wanted to answer any questions you may have, introduce sort of ourselves to you and Bessem and Arbin, and answer anything you may have about the operation or how this is working or any questions you may have. So I'm going to step back and I'll let these guys talk and answer.
My name is Arbin Grechevsky. I was here last month, I believe, with my brother. We did introduce ourselves. That's about it. Excited to get the liquor license, and that's it. You want to say something?
Yeah, I'm just happy to be
Shy.
here. I'm happy to work in the city. So far that I've been here, I love everything about it, and that's all I wanted to say.
Thank you very much. Welcome
Thank you.
to Pleasant Ridge.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Mimosas for
congrats.
everyone.
Yes, thank you.
It's a beloved spot. People here, so congrats.
Thank you.
That's awesome. All right, public hearing, and then, all right, I'm going to open the floor for public hearing. Seeing no comments, I will close the public hearing, and then I'll ask for a motion.
Mayor, I move the request by the owners of the Whistle Stop Cafe LLC, 24060 Woodward Avenue, Pleasant Ridge, Michigan, for the transfer of ownership of the existing Class C liquor license and proposed operating agreement be approved, and that the mayor, city clerk, city manager, and city attorney be authorized to sign the agreement.
Second.
Awesome. Any comments before we vote? All right, I guess let's have a vote.
Commissioner Budnick?
Yes.
Commissioner Linko?
Yes.
Commissioner Schmier?
Yes.
Mayor Scott?
Yes. The motion carries. Congrats.
Thank you.
Congrats.
Right. All right, let's right. All right, let's go on to the Black Grant Program. Yeah, exactly. Too funny.
Oh, come on, Amy.
All right, I'll do it. Each year, the city participates in the Community Development Block Grant Program with Oakland County, which is ultimately through HUD. The city receives $7,000 from that program. It helps offset some of the costs of the senior services that we provide, such as the senior bingo or dinners or the trips that they go on. It offsets the cost of Shawnee and Greg's time coordinating that, transportation services to get the seniors there, and any kind of administrative costs that we have related to that program. We've done this program, I'm gonna say, for the last 10 years. We had done some other previous programs when Pleasant Ridge had a low mod, which is a lower income area. We do not have that any longer, so we can't offer some of the services like a sidewalk program or a tree planting program, things like that. So this is the most effective use of the funds, since we can serve our senior population. And it really has helped to increase the availability of programs at the community center for senior citizens.
There are quite a few things that happen where people are just sort of take a bus to some place. And,
Right.
Yeah.
So the first step in this process for the application is to hold a public hearing, consider any kind of public comments regarding the allocation of the funds. And then after the public hearing, should the commission wish to do so, we'll allocate those funds to the program. And there's an application that the mayor would sign.
Excellent. Thank you. All right, well, I will open the floor for another public hearing. I call the public hearing open on our grant program. Seeing no comments, I will close the public hearing, and I'll ask for a motion.
Your Honor, I move the Oakland County Community Development Block Grant Program Year 2023 application, including the programming of $7,000 to the Public Services, Senior Services line item, and subrecipient agreement be approved, and that the mayor be authorized to sign the agreement.
Support. Any other comments? Let's have a vote.
Commissioner Lenko?
Yes.
Commissioner Budnick?
Yes.
Commissioner Schmier?
Yes.
Mayor Scott?
Yes, the motion carries. And let's see what's left. So on the next item, we're actually establishing a public hearing to talk about some changes to our zoning to help with some of the traffic issues and other issues that we've been discussing. Jim?
So this is what the Planning Commission considered at their October meeting. They held a public hearing on these zoning amendments, and following that, recommended approval by the City Commission. Next step is for the City Commission to schedule a public hearing, hold the public hearing, and then you can consider the amendments. What are the amendments? This started from the moratorium on drive-throughs along Woodward, which came out of the SkyMint application process. Our zoning ordinance was silent on the question, so it neither allowed nor prohibited them. We thought it best to clarify that they were not allowed in Pleasant Ridge, no drive-through uses. So there are some standards which address that. There's also some new access management standards. One of the things that I think we should consider going along with the upcoming cycle tracks that will be along most of our frontage along Woodward is prohibiting driveways onto Woodward. One of the challenges of designing a cycle track, driveways are a major impediment and a major challenge to the comfort and usability and quality of the pedestrian and bicycle environment. And given that all of our Woodward facing properties have access to a rear alley and regularly spaced side streets that you can turn right into that alley, there's really no necessity for businesses to have a driveway onto Woodward. And when you think about the corridor, the businesses that have driveways on the Woodward are typically automotive focused. Gas station, oil change shop, and then the bank are the major ones. And then there's a few other drive-throughs, the in between the Dr. George and there's a driveway there, but it's not really a necessary driveway. So this would have some impact on future development, but it also I think is balanced by the fact that we are making some major improvements for people and bicycles along Woodward, and this is a step towards ensuring that remains a high-quality environment so that people can and want to use that space. Along with this, some setback and lot coverage requirements. One of the things we're proposing to do is reduce the front yard setback requirement in the C and RO districts, which are the zoning districts along Woodward, so that buildings don't have to be set back as far from the street. Allow those buildings to come closer to the sidewalk so you have more space in the rear to handle parking and those other uses. It's just reorienting on the site where you use the space. Another consideration is we have a lot of zero lot development where the buildings come right to the sidewalk already. So we have a lot of existing buildings that are non-conforming under the current setbacks. So the proposed setbacks would be much more in line with current and existing conditions, and would allow for future development to happen in a way that puts the parking and the cars in the back and keeps the front door for people. And then the final standard is this is one that I've had on the back burner for a while, didn't really want to bring it forward on its own, but now when we're doing other zoning amendments, is a minimum open space requirement in residential districts. This is essentially a conservative standard. We went through and we have all the data from when we did the equivalent residential unit stormwater management study. We know how much of each property is impervious versus pervious. What the minimum open space requirement does is just establish a minimum percentage of the property that has to remain pervious, grass, other, permeable, natural areas. We've been getting more and more questions about paving our entire lot, people wanting to do that, put in artificial turf in the backyard, do things where there would essentially be very, very, very little green space left. And that would be a change from the fundamental character of the town. So this proposed amendment would create, I believe, 15 properties, residential properties out of 1,126 in the city that wouldn't meet these standards currently. And in most cases, it's by 1 or 2%. There's only a few that are much above the standards we're setting. So again, this is essentially looking to take the character we have in town now and just protect it and make sure what people do in their yards is consistent with what's already existing out there. There's some information in the agenda summary that shows what the proposed minimum open space requirement in each zoning district is, what the average existing open space, and then the maximum, or I guess minimum lot coverage or maximum, is right now. Just to give you some sense of how the proposed standards relate to what exists. So those are the zoning amendments. The action is to schedule a public hearing for the December 13th City Commission meeting. That was a real quick overview. The proposed amendments are in your packet with a specific language. I'd be happy to answer any questions or clarify anything for you.
Thank you. Were there any questions for Jim? May I have a motion, please?
Mayor, I move that a public hearing be scheduled for Tuesday, December 13th, 2022 at 7:30 p.m. to solicit public comment on an ordinance to amend Chapter 82, zoning of the Pleasant Ridge City Code, Section 82-3, definitions, Section 82-164, yard and bulk requirements, Section 82-197, special land use, and the addition of a new Section 82-208, access management.
May I have a second?
Second.
All right, may we have a vote?
Commissioner Schmier?
Yes.
Commissioner Lenko?
Yes.
Commissioner Budnick?
Yes.
Mayor Scott?
Yes. The motion carries. All right, let's move on to City Commission rules and procedures. Let's see how many we broke tonight.
Yeah. We observe them in the breach.
Okay.
This is something that, again, that I've been noodling with for some time. This is a document that is, again, essentially conservative in nature. It just takes a lot of what we already do, and just writes it down. It serves as a resource. So one, the public can look at it and understand all of the City Commission rules for how we conduct a meeting and for how the City Commission conducts its business. It's also intended to be a resource for the commission itself, particularly a new commissioner coming in, or when we have, kind of a challenging meeting, something to refer back to, so that those ground rules are all well known. There's, a number of provisions that are in here. I won't go through all of them, because again, it's how we do things already, mostly. But, you know, there's even just a Robert's Rules of Order motions quick reference page in the back. It's just intended to be a reference document for our own use going forward. It's good to have clear written ground rules that we all know about. And then when what happens with this is usually after an election, the city commission at its first meeting with the new commission will bring this forward and reapprove it. And that you can make amendments or changes or adjust things in here anytime. So it doesn't have to be after an election, but that's the normal order. And then we can, you know, it's a document that's created by you, adopted by you, and hopefully observed by all of us. So again, this is for introduction. You could approve it tonight. You could wait. You can, you know, it doesn't really matter. But this is just something I want to put forward for your consideration.
Yeah, thanks for getting it out there for us to review. It's interesting because there's been so much going on in the city over the last 2 or 3 years. It's good to remind us just the process that we follow and yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Were there any comments on the rules, or would anyone like to make a motion to move it forward? Or
Are you gonna move? I had a quick question.
Sure,
Comment.
please.
Just as far as, just to be clear, like, I mean, the Constitution and the Charter still supersedes this document from that standpoint. Yeah, so I support it, like, that understanding. And what was, oh, and since it's also how the public engages with the city commission, do we need to, like, invite the public to review it before we adopt it, or is that excessive?
I guess my view would be that it's a reflection of what we're pretty much doing already. So
Exactly.
I don't know that there'd be anything.
No, like, I like the document as it's presented.
Yeah, and it's a living document. So if there's something that someone in the public thought we should do differently, they'd always have the opportunity to bring it to us for our comment and our consideration.
Okay.
Yeah, if we were proposing to change something, I think that's, you know, certainly a cause to pause and broadcast it loudly. Given that it's conservative, it's just how we do things already. But that's up to
No,
you.
it memorializes kind of
Yeah.
the essence of
And
what we do.
And Open Meetings Act and the Charter, that's the Open Meetings is another very important one that's kind of above this, that and the Charter that informed these processes we use. So, you know, if they make more amendments to open meetings over time, we may have to change this to reflect that.
Right.
You know, one of the things is during COVID, we could have remote participation in meetings. And that's why Ann is here as an observer only, because we're back to the standard open meetings where she can't participate because she's not here.
With that, I'm comfortable. I'll move.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One comment, Mayor. I
Yes,
was going to
please.
say, I'm still learning. You know, I still can. You know, it's been 3 years, but it's still. It's good to just have something to look back to. It's a rubric, and just it's never a bad thing to look back and have a reference page that's a little more explicit than maybe the Charter, or something that we use a little bit more on a daily basis. You know, but yeah, I think it looked good. So, Your Honor, I move the City Commission rules and procedures be adopted.
Second.
Excellent. Any more comment?
One last one. I know some cities kind of do a statement of conviviality or something like this before. I think Ferndale does. I don't know if that's something we'd want to consider, but I don't know.
I don't know.
What did you have in mind?
Yeah.
No, just kind of in the same thread. Just, and I don't know if it's appropriate at this time, or if, I don't know. Like, we need to lean on this document if we ever need to lean on this document. So, but no, it just kind of sets the tone. I mean, that's. I mean, that'd be you as a leader to, like, I'm not asking for this. I'm just saying it kind of fits in the same kind of channel.
I'd say, well, first there's a motion on the table, so we should probably vote on that motion. And then if that were needed, that's something we could do.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. All right, let's take a vote.
Commissioner Budnick?
Yes.
Commissioner Lenko?
Yes.
Commissioner Schmier?
Yes.
Mayor Scott?
Yes. The motion carries. And I think we're down to city manager report.
Yeah, let me make this quick. The election, again, went very well. Amy and Kirsten can tell you more about that if you'd like, but we had no real major issues. Like always, we had really great election inspectors And everything went off without a hitch here. We reported our results very early. So I want to thank Amy and Kirsten and all the election inspectors for, again, running a very nice election. Leaf pickup has kind of been just my favorite time of year. This year we had, we had half an inch of rain in October. That was the lowest amount of rain we'd had in October in 11 years. And rain in October is a determinant of leaf fall. When trees and the ground is dry, they drop their leaves sooner. Last year we had 6 inches of rain in October. So, this year we had backed up leaf collection by 1 week because the last 5 or 6 years it's always been, can we go later? Can we go later? The leaves are dropping later. So we did that, and then they all fell down early. So we're playing catch up. But the good news is that all the leaves are down. So once we get through these next couple pickups, we'll be in real good shape for the rest of the season. Other than that, I think everything that's germane has been talked about already, so I'll leave it at that. If you have any questions about anything happening in the city?
Anything to comment on the construction on Woodward and Ferndale? Has that presented any issues that we've been told about, or does it seem to be moving along?
No, I haven't actually heard anything. It's been a good test run, I guess. And it's actually been a little bit more impactful because they've had every other crossover closed.
Right.
So you have to go further. And even just the amount of cars that can fit to stack up, you've seen that when you try to get out at Oxford and you don't have that long stack up, you have to kind of weave the barrel. So that's been a challenge. But, by and large, it's functioned. Haven't had any major notable issues or complaints about it. So they're doing all the median concrete work, and then next summer is the Constructapalooza.
Yeah.
Our plans for our stretch of Woodward for that cycle track project have been redesigned. They've been submitted to MDOT. We're just waiting for TAP to reapprove the plans, which haven't really changed.
Great.
So that should be. I don't know if everyone's gone deer hunting or something up there, but
it could be.
Go ahead. So.
I think they're back. I got an email today, so. Yeah. It's interesting. I've been taking drives southbound on Woodward, and I realize my discomfort is that I'm actually going 35 miles per hour now. So I'll admit, going down to 3 lanes actually helps me go the speed limit. So I think it's a good move for that stretch of the road, and it just makes you more observant and all of the things we know about losing lanes. So.
Have you noticed anything, any of you, like driving on Woodward lately with any kind of traffic impacts?
I think what I've seen actually is more on the Royal Oak side than on the Ferndale side, and that the road narrows before you get to 696. And there are times when, not normally, but if there's an incident along the road, then it actually does cause much more of a backup than it might have before. And then there's some construction happening at 11 Mile, heading northbound, that makes everything on the southbound feel worse because of how you make right turns and things. But other than that, haven't heard anything about just people getting used to the change more than anything.
Well, I think that's kind of instructive. I mean, it fills in, or it's a confirmation point where we've always said traffic counts are much different north of 696 than they are south. And I think it's interesting that, any little thing that happens north of 696 seems to has a bigger impact with the lane reduction there, just because there's more background traffic than exists down here. So it's easier for us to accommodate the reduction without any real impact in level of service.
Right.
Whereas up there, you can't.
Right.
We've always kind of known that just based on the counts. Interesting.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Any comments or questions for Jim?
Not for Jim, but I also just wanted to reiterate how great everyone was on Election Day. So it was an awesome job done by everyone. So thank you.
Thank you. All right. Any other business? Then I guess we're ready to adjourn. Would somebody like to adjourn us?
Your Honor, I move we adjourn.
Second?
Second.
We're done.